My name is Emily Carter. At my cousin's wedding, my own father laughed at my dress and my place in the family, right before a groomsman stopped the room and addressed me by the job title he never thought mattered. If you've ever been underestimated by family, share your story in the comments. I stepped away from the lighting rig after a quick check, the way muscle memory does the work before anyone asks. The aisle looked fine, the uplights were even, nothing urgent. By the time I reached the family table, plates were arriving and my chair was already tucked out of place. Robert Carter leaned back with his glass raised. "That dress," he said, smiling wide enough for cousins to hear, "it's very practical." A few laughs landed. Someone added, "She's always been practical." Another voice followed, "Not exactly wedding material." The server set bread down between us. I slid my glass an inch away from my elbow and left it there. My phone lit up with an unread email. Subject line clipped to the venue name, still unopened. Robert kept going. "After all the money we spent on school, at least she didn't end up designing malls." He laughed first, proud of the timing. No one corrected him. A cousin nodded like this was a harmless story they'd heard before. Silverware tapped plates. The email stayed unread. Marcus Hill passed the table on his way across the floor. He slowed, stopped, and turned. His posture changed before his voice did. "Ms. Carter," he said, formal and clear, "thank you for the final walkthrough. We're ready when you are." Every chair froze. A fork hovered midair. Robert's smile stalled, then slipped. "Excuse me?" Robert said. Marcus didn't repeat himself. He waited, the way people do when the process matters more than opinions. Robert took a sip to cover the pause and coughed hard. Wine went the wrong way. The laugh that followed sounded misplaced and thin. A server leaned in, all reflex. "Sir, are you okay?" Marcus nodded once at me and moved on, already back in motion. The room restarted in pieces. Someone whispered my name, wrong the first time, then again. Robert wiped his mouth with a napkin. "That was a mix-up," he said too quickly. "These things happen." Two relatives leaned together, trading a look that wasn't friendly or curious, just alert. A phone came out, then disappeared. A chair turned toward the aisle. Someone said my last name again, testing it like a fact that needed checking. The phone buzzed again against the table edge. The subject line didn't change. The email remained unopened. Behind us, someone laughed, too late. Someone else cleared a throat, and a chair bumped the table while the band kept playing, unaware, as if nothing required explanation from anyone. A woman from the venue approached, fingers curled around a clipboard. She touched my arm lightly. "We need you for a moment," she said, low and precise. "There's a question about the west wall." Chairs scraped as people shifted to watch. Robert opened his mouth, then closed it. The server took the glass away. I stood as the woman led me toward the hall, voices rising behind us, the clipboard tapping my wrist as we walked, the question waiting before I could answer. The question about the west wall turned out to be nothing. A bracket had shifted during setup. It took 5 minutes to check, sign off, and step back into the reception with a pen still warm from my hand. By then, the room had already decided what had happened. People smiled differently, softer, but careful. The kind of look you give when you think someone caused a scene and you're being polite about it. A cousin touched my arm and said, "You okay?" That was awkward. Across the room, Robert was already talking, not loudly, comfortably. "It was a joke," he told an uncle. She took it the wrong way. And that groomsman? He must have been confused. Each sentence landed clean. Heads nodded. The story simplified itself as it traveled. By the time it reached the bar, the details were gone. A text came in from my sister. "Dad didn't mean it. Can we not do this today?" The band started another song. Chairs filled again. The night smoothed over. My phone buzzed with a work email. This one wasn't optional. "Please clarify your role during tonight's event," it read. "Several parties have asked." The wording stayed neutral. The effect didn't. Suddenly, there was something to explain. I walked to a side table and opened the attachment. A schedule popped up. The final sign-off time had been moved forward, 24 hours earlier than planned. No note, no CC, no message. That hadn't come from me. At the family table, conversation shifted away whenever I sat down. A pause, then a new topic. Someone mentioned dessert. Someone else asked about parking. No one said my name. Robert leaned over. "See," he said low. "Everything's fine. Let's not make it bigger." A server passed, dropping off coffee. The cup rattled against the saucer before settling. I slid it aside and stood again, this time heading for the hallway with my phone. Marcus was near the back doors, scanning a checklist. He didn't wave or smile. He waited until I reached him. "If it's clean," he said without looking up, "paperwork will show it." That was all. No reassurance, no commentary. He checked a box and moved on. The reminder email arrived 10 minutes later. Action required. It landed while my mother was whispering, "Just let it go for tonight." The timing felt deliberate, even though it wasn't. Systems don't care about feelings. They just move. I stepped outside the reception area to call the venue office. The coordinator sounded apologetic. "We didn't change the schedule," she said. "It came in as an external request." "From who?" I asked. She hesitated. "I can't say without checking." The call ended with a promise to follow up. It didn't sound urgent. It sounded managed. Back inside, Robert laughed at something someone said. His hand rested easy on the back of a chair that wasn't his. He looked comfortable, believed. Another email arrived. This one was firmer. "Please confirm authorization by end of day." The band took a break. People lined up for drinks. A cousin leaned close. "You know how Dad is," she said. "He just wants peace." The word peace sat there, heavy and undefined. I checked the schedule again. The moved deadline glowed on the screen. No initials, no explanation. Just a time that no longer fit. At the edge of the room, the venue manager watched me type, then looked away as if neutrality required distance. Robert raised his glass when he saw me. "No hard feelings," he said, smiling for the table. No one argued with him. My phone vibrated again. "Final reminder," the system said. The coordinator finally called back. "The request didn't come through us," she said. "It was routed around." "From where?" I asked. She named a department that shouldn't have touched scheduling. The answer didn't fix anything. It only narrowed it. A new message followed, this time with a clock icon. "If confirmation is not received, responsibility will be reassigned." Chairs scraped nearby as people stood for speeches. Applause rose. Someone tapped a glass. I watched the seconds tick down on my screen, the reassignment notice already drafted, waiting for the system to decide who owned the problem next. The reassignment notice didn't fire right away. Systems rarely move as fast as people expect. That delay gave me just enough room to pull the thread instead of reacting to the clock. The schedule change led to an email chain buried 2 levels deep. Not sent to me, just copied. There it was, Robert's name sitting comfortably in the CC line, tagged as Family Liaison, a role I hadn't known existed and definitely hadn't approved. The messages were friendly, almost casual. Phrases like helping with logistics and keeping things smooth showed up more than once. One line stood out. "Emily prefers minimal back and forth," Robert had written. "Happy to streamline." That sentence explained more than it should have. Another file sat below the chain, a scanned authorization form, temporary access, my name typed clean at the top. The signature at the bottom looked right at a glance. Same slant, same loop, wrong pressure, wrong ending stroke. Not mine. The comment field said, "Provided by family representative." The phone rang before I could scroll further. Robert didn't wait for a greeting. "You're overthinking this," he said. "I stepped in so you wouldn't get overwhelmed." "I didn't ask you to," I said. "You didn't have to," he replied. "That's what family does." The word family landed like a shield. He kept talking. about reputation, about how people were watching, about how problems didn't need to exist if everyone stayed calm. If this turns into paperwork, he added, it won't look good for you. The call ended before I could respond. I walked back toward the service corridor where staff moved between storage rooms and checklists. Robert stood near a folding table, chatting with someone from catering, relaxed, like he belonged there. We need to talk, I said. He smiled without surprise. About what? The authorization, I said. You sent it. He shook his head fast. I was just helping. Right on cue, a recorded announcement played overhead. Authorized personnel only beyond this point. Robert didn't react. The timing did enough work on its own. I never signed that, I said. You would have, he replied, if I'd waited. The answer came too easily. Too practiced. This is for your own good, he continued. You don't need this stress. A coordinator glanced over, then away. No one intervened. Robert's voice stayed low, steady. Drop it, he said, before someone gets the wrong idea. I stepped back. The conversation wasn't going anywhere it hadn't already been. Another email hit my phone. The subject line was polite. The content wasn't. Please confirm authorization immediately to avoid delay. The signature scan sat open on my screen as I typed a response. Not an argument, a request. Formal, direct. Pending clarification, please pause all sign-offs. I hit send. Robert's smile thinned. You're making this harder than it needs to be. Then stop, I said. He laughed once, sharp. You always think you're in charge. That was the moment it clicked. Not emotionally, just mechanically. He hadn't guessed. He hadn't stumbled. He'd known exactly where to insert himself and which buttons to press because he'd watched me work long enough to map the gaps. A staff member approached with a clipboard. We're holding until we hear back, she said, careful not to look at either of us. Robert leaned closer. You just froze the whole thing, he said. They'll blame you. The room felt smaller, not because of pressure, but because options narrowed. My phone vibrated again. This time, no reminder. A confirmation that my request was logged and under review. Neutral language. No judgment. Robert's expression changed, just a fraction. You didn't need to do that, he said. I did, I replied. He stepped aside as someone pushed a cart past us, already turning toward the exit, already preparing the next version of the story. The clipboard tapped once against my wrist as the staff member waited. The email thread refreshed. The system acknowledged the pause. Behind us, the reception kept moving, unaware of the delays stacking up one action at a time, while I watched the confirmation icon spin, knowing the request had gone through and that nothing would stay simple from here. The email arrived with no warning tone, no red flag, no sense of urgency in the language. Due to disputed authorization, it said, technical sign-off privileges are temporarily suspended pending review. The word temporarily didn't soften the rest of the sentence. Access was gone. The system confirmed it twice. At the venue office, a coordinator avoided my eyes while pulling up a shared folder. We have to follow protocol, she said. It's automatic once there's a dispute. My name had already been removed from the public project sheet. Not crossed out, just absent. The document refreshed and settled as if it had always been that way. A vendor asked who to contact for final approval. Another staff member answered before I could speak. We'll reroute, she said. The decision moved past me without resistance. Robert didn't show up right away. He didn't need to. His version was already circulating. A planner mentioned family conflict in a hushed tone, like a diagnosis. Someone else used the word unstable, paired with concern. He's just trying to help her, a guest said near the hallway. It's stressful for her, that's all. That phrasing stuck. Helpful father, stressed daughter. A compliance email followed. Please refrain from independent action while review is ongoing. The instruction felt pointed. Marcus found me near the service entrance, standing still with my phone in my hand. "They pulled it," he said. "Full stop." "I know," I replied. He didn't offer advice. He didn't say it would work out. "This is how he does it," Marcus said, "through systems, never direct." A printed notice appeared at the front desk, clean and official. Temporary reassignment of responsibility. No names, just roles shifting. Robert finally called. "This is what I was trying to prevent," he said. "You forced their hand." "They forged my signature," I said. "They filled a gap," he replied, "and now it's messy." The call ended when someone approached him. His voice stayed calm the whole time. An email from legal came next. Any response regarding authorization may carry liability. That was the trap. The form from the night before, the one I hadn't signed, now sat in a folder marked pending. If I challenged it the wrong way, responsibility would land on me. If I stayed silent, the process would finish without me. At the reception, a toast started. Applause rose and fell. The band resumed. The event rolled forward, indifferent. A coordinator returned with a clipboard. "We need acknowledgement," she said, "just to confirm you've received notice." The pen hovered. Not signing meant refusal. Signing meant consent. Neither fixed anything. Across the room, Robert laughed with a group of guests. Someone clapped him on the back. He looked relieved, like a problem had been contained. A cousin passed by. "Dad's worried about you," she said. "He thinks you're overwhelmed." Marcus stood a few feet away, watching the flow of staff reroute around the new decision. "He boxed you," he said quietly. "Every option pushes back on you." Another email arrived. "Please confirm receipt." The words stacked. Dispute. Temporary. Pending. Refrain. I handed the clipboard back without signing. "I need clarification," I said. The coordinator nodded, already bracing for delay. "I'll note it." Robert noticed then. His smile tightened when he saw the exchange. He stepped closer. "You don't need to do this," he said. "They're just doing their jobs." "So am I replied. He leaned in. "This will follow you," he said. "People remember these things." The statement carried weight because it was true. Systems keep records. So do people. A notification popped up. "Review initiated." The acknowledgement time-stamped itself. No room for argument, just progress in a direction I hadn't chosen. Marcus checked his watch. "They're moving fast," he said. The coordinator returned, this time with another form, thinner, simpler. "We'll need a response before midnight," she said. Midnight felt close. The phone vibrated again. Another reminder. Another neutral sentence. Robert stepped back into the crowd, already talking, already framing the story for anyone who asked. The music swelled, glasses clinked. The suspension became official just after midnight. The message came from a system address, unsigned, written in language that didn't lean either way. Technical authorization remains inactive pending outcome of review. No blame, no defense, just a status. The inbox refreshed and stayed the same. The venue was quieting down by then, staff finishing tasks without looking for direction from me anymore. A checklist that used to carry my initials now ended with a blank line. Someone else's responsibility. That was the moment it settled. Not as anger, not even surprise. The realization was smaller and heavier. This wasn't about a comment at a table or a bad joke that went too far. It was about who had the right to decide and how easily that right had been replaced. I'd let it happen in pieces. Let Robert answer emails because it felt faster. Let him handle logistics because it sounded harmless. Let him explain things to people because it avoided friction. Each time, it seemed minor. Each time, it moved the line a little farther away. The phone buzzed again. A new message from my sister. "Dad says this spiraled. He's worried." Worried meant exposed. It always had. I closed the message without replying. Marcus texted a few minutes later. "Still around if you are." We met near the back entrance where staff took smoke breaks and deliveries came in late. He didn't ask how I was doing. He didn't offer reassurance. He waited until the door closed behind us. "This part matters," he said. "The name you want is Linda Chavez." Compliance. She logged the authorization at 6:42 p.m. last night. The time landed clean, precise, not emotional. "That's before I even sat down," I said. Marcus nodded. "And it came from an internal terminal, not mobile." He didn't speculate. He didn't connect dots out loud. He handed me facts and stepped back. Back at my car, the documents opened easily. Timestamps don't argue. Neither do access logs. The pattern showed itself without commentary. The authorization hadn't floated in by accident. It had been placed, deliberately, during a window Robert knew I wouldn't see. The phone rang again. Robert's name flashed. "This has gone far enough," he said when I answered. "You're freezing a project over pride." "It's not pride," I said. "You're making yourself look unstable," he replied, and people remember that. The word unstable carried weight because he'd already put it into circulation. It explained everything without requiring proof. "I won't fight you about family," I said. "That's not the point." He scoffed. "There you go again, acting like this is business." "It is," I said. The line went dead. The decision took shape without drama. No speech, no announcement. The goal shifted from defending myself to documenting what had happened. Not for Robert, not for the wedding. For the system that had quietly accepted a lie because it came from the right place. The city's request portal was still open. Forms don't care who your father is. They care about fields being filled correctly. I typed in the request for log access, chose neutral language, attached only what could be verified. No commentary, no accusation. The cost was already clear. This wouldn't end with an apology. It wouldn't smooth over. Family dinners would stop being invitations and start being absences. That price didn't need to be weighed anymore. It had already been paid in advance. One silence at a time. Another message arrived from the system. Request received. No judgment, just acknowledgement. Marcus sent one more text. "Once this starts, it won't pause." "I know," I replied. The cursor blinked at the bottom of the form, waiting for confirmation. My finger hovered, then pressed submit. The screen refreshed, the request locked. A tracking number appeared. Somewhere in the building, the night crew turned off lights and set alarms. The venue moved on without me, the way systems do when a name drops out of the workflow. The phone buzzed again. This time, it was a missed call from Robert. I set the phone face down on the seat beside me, watching the confirmation sit there, knowing the next response wouldn't come quietly, and that the line I should have drawn earlier was already behind me as the request processed and the clock kept moving forward. The response to my request didn't come from the venue. It came from a legal address, formatted clean, detached from everything emotional that had led up to it. Review temporarily paused pending submission of related documentation. Attached was Robert's name. He had filed first. The document was framed as a clarification, not a defense. It outlined his support role across multiple projects, described as informal assistance requested by family. Dates stretched back years, different venues, different clients, different titles. The pattern was obvious once it was laid out. This wasn't a single overstep. It was a habit. A line near the end explained the timing. The wedding venue listed as a proof of concept. A successful handoff would position him as a trusted intermediary for a separate redevelopment deal already in discussion. My access wasn't the goal. It was the currency. The phrase family consent appeared twice. That reframed everything. The joke at the table, the comment about malls. He hadn't been guessing. He'd been tracking. The shifted deadline wasn't a mistake. It created a window that fit his schedule, not mine. Another message followed. Authorization recognized under familial representation pending further review. The system accepted it because the paperwork fit a category. No one weighed intent. No one questioned motive. Marcus called. He boxed you with precedent, he said. This isn't new for him. A separate file opened, pulled from an old project I barely remembered. My name was there again, listed as primary. His signature appeared below it, dated months after I'd finished the work. I hadn't noticed at the time because nothing had gone wrong. That was the point. The phone rang. Robert didn't bother with pretense. This would have helped you, he said. I was building something. You were trading my work, I replied. For leverage, he said. That's how things move. I didn't argue. There was nothing to correct. The explanation stood on its own. Later that afternoon, an update arrived from compliance. Due to submitted documentation, prior authorization is provisionally valid. Provisionally meant enough to stall me. The request for log access froze. The tracking number stayed visible but inactive, like a door that existed without opening. At the venue, Robert's access was quietly restored, not announced, just functional again. A coordinator emailed him directly with a question that used to come to me. Marcus forwarded the message without comment. I watched the thread grow. Decisions resumed. The project kept moving, now routed around me entirely. A legal notice followed. Further action may complicate resolution. The implication was clear. Push too hard, and the story would become about conflict instead of process. Robert texted once more. Let it settle, he wrote. This ends clean if you stop. The truth was sitting there, documented, time-stamped, and useless without timing. That was the shift. Facts alone weren't enough, not when the system prioritized continuity over correction. The city portal refreshed. My request stayed locked. A new note appeared. Under review. Marcus met me outside the venue again. He's ahead on paper, he said. That doesn't mean he's right. It means he's early, I said. He nodded. Then don't chase him. Change where it lands. The wedding wrapped without incident. Photos were taken. Guests left smiling. The venue sent a thank you email that listed everyone involved. My name wasn't on it. Robert stood near the exit, shaking hands, collecting compliments. He didn't look at me when he passed. Another update arrived as the parking lot cleared. Access restored to authorized representative. His phone, not mine. The request log time-stamped itself again, unchanged. The system wasn't broken. It was doing exactly what it was built to do. The realization settled without heat. If I waited for fairness, I'd lose by default. The only way forward would require changing the sequence, not the facts. The phone buzzed once more. Compliance review deferred. I watched the message lock into place, knowing the pause wasn't neutral, knowing the window had shifted again, and that Robert had bought himself time while my request sat frozen, waiting for a move that hadn't been made yet as the venue lights went dark and the next step formed without being spoken. The city review meeting didn't look dramatic. A long table, name placards, water pitchers already half empty. This was the room where projects were corrected without anyone raising their voice. I arrived early and took the seat marked with my name. Robert sat 2 chairs down, already talking to someone from development like this was a formality he'd handled before. He nodded once when he saw me. Not hostile, not warm. Confident. The chair of the panel called the session to order. We're here to review authorship, authorization, and compliance concerns related to the venue project, she said. No personal statements. We'll proceed by record. That suited me. When my turn came, I didn't look at Robert. I opened a folder and slid a single page forward. These are the system logs, I said. Original entries, time, IP, terminal ID. The screen behind the panel updated. Rows of data appeared. Dates, seconds, locations. No commentary. A panel member leaned in. This shows the authorization was submitted internally, she said. Yes, I replied, at 6:42 p.m. from a terminal assigned to administrative access. Robert shifted. That's a technical glitch, he said. These systems duplicate entries all the time. No one responded right away. The chair glanced at another panelist. "Do we have confirmation?" she asked. A woman at the end of the table cleared her throat. "Compliance can confirm," she said. "The log reflects a single entry, no duplication." That was the second beat. Robert smiled tightly. "I was assisting," he said, "with family consent." The phrase landed flat in this room. I slid the next document forward. "This is the backup log," I said, "maintained separately." The screen refreshed again. The same timestamp, the same terminal, a different header. The compliance officer nodded. "These records are immutable." Robert opened his mouth, then closed it. An automated notification chimed. The projector caught it before anyone could stop it. Unauthorized action confirmed. No one laughed. The timing did all the work. The chair paused the display. "Mr. Carter," she said, "your authorization is invalid." Robert started to speak. She raised a hand. "This panel will determine next steps." A representative from the venue leaned forward. "We weren't aware of these entries," he said. "We relied on the documentation provided." "That documentation," the chair replied, "is now void." The room shifted, not emotionally, procedurally. The panel voted without discussion. Authorization revoked. File referred for administrative review. Notices issued. A staff member approached Robert with an envelope. "Service," she said. He stared at it for a moment before taking it. The chair turned back to me. "Ms. Carter," she said, "your role will be reinstated pending final review." The words were plain. The effect wasn't. Robert stood slowly. "This isn't finished," he said. No one answered him. As people gathered their papers, an email landed in my inbox. Access restored. The system moved on. Robert walked out without looking back. The envelope stayed unopened in his hand. I stayed seated while the room emptied, watching the screen clear itself, the logs disappear, the records saved without ceremony. A panel member nodded once as she passed. "Thank you for keeping it to process," she said. Outside, voices rose and fell in the hallway. Phones buzzed, schedules adjusted. The email thread refreshed again. Investigation initiated. The confirmation time stamped itself. No adjectives, no opinion. I closed the folder and stood, the chair sliding back into place, knowing the record was set and that whatever came next would follow its own rules as the door swung shut behind me and the meeting moved on without waiting for anyone to say what it all meant. The venue stopped copying Robert on emails first. Not with an announcement. His name just disappeared from threads that kept moving without him. Questions went to new contacts. Decisions landed elsewhere. The work didn't slow down. At a follow-up meeting, someone mentioned his name, and another person corrected it without emphasis. He's no longer involved. No one asked why. The investigation stayed administrative. Notices, requests, deadlines, the kind of process that doesn't allow for speeches. People who used to return his calls stopped doing it quickly, the way professionals do when access changes and no one wants to be last holding the wrong number. A message came from a former partner of his. He didn't tell us this was happening. That was as close as anyone came to defending him. My mother called one afternoon while I was reviewing revisions at a temporary desk. "Can we talk?" she asked. We met at a cafe near her house. She arrived early, hands folded, already rehearsed. "He didn't mean to hurt you," she said. "I know," I replied. "That doesn't mean it wasn't wrong," she said. "I know that, too." She waited for more. None came. "I don't hate him," I said, "but I won't explain him anymore." She nodded slowly like she'd expected that answer and hoped for something else. Family group messages went quiet. Then they fractured. A cousin asked to clear the air. An aunt suggested mediation. I declined without argument. The refusal stayed factual, no explanations attached. Back at work, the reinstatement came through clean. My name returned to documents without comment. The project picked up exactly where it had paused, like the gap never existed. A compliance form landed in my inbox with a simple option. Revoke third-party authorizations? I checked yes. Another followed. Confirm removal of familial representation? Yes again. The system worked through the requests without urgency. Each confirmation arrived the same way, neutral and final. One email stood out only because of the subject line. Access removed successfully. It wasn't meant to be funny. It was accurate. I updated my contact information next. New work number, new forwarding rules. Old calls filtered out quietly. No blocks, just distance. Marcus sent a short message. You good? Yes, I replied. He didn't ask for details. The office offered me a permanent space the following week. Nothing fancy, a desk by the window, a chair that didn't wobble, a door that closed when needed. I set my laptop down and logged in with credentials that were mine alone. The phone vibrated once. A missed call. Robert's number. The screen went dark when I turned it over. A colleague stopped by with a question about load calculations. We walked through it together. The work was steady, familiar, uncomplicated. Another email came in. Investigation status updated. I didn't open it right away. At lunch, someone mentioned the wedding. Beautiful venue, they said. Shame about the drama. I nodded once and changed the subject. Later that afternoon, my mother texted. He wants to apologize. I typed back, not now. She didn't push. The day filled itself with tasks, red lines, approvals, small decisions that added up to something solid, the kind of work that didn't require defending. Before leaving, I signed one last document, a blanket revocation, no exceptions. The pen moved easily. The system acknowledged receipt. Changes effective immediately. The phone buzzed again, another missed call. Same number. I closed the laptop instead. The office lights stayed on as I packed up. Papers slid into a folder. The chair tucked under the desk. Nothing ceremonial. On the way out, the receptionist waved. See you tomorrow. See you, I said. The phone stayed face down in my bag as I walked to the car. The number would keep calling for a while. Systems don't stop people from trying. They just decide who gets through. At the desk the next morning, everything loaded without delay. Files opened, calendars synced. No names appeared where they shouldn't. The phone vibrated once more, then went still. I set it face down on the desk, opened the laptop, and kept working while the call went unanswered and the day moved forward without waiting for anyone to explain what had already been settled.